Hey everybody, and welcome back to a Skogok Mark. I'm Joe Price, and behind the camera today is Ida Olsen.
Hello!
It's an awesome lady. So, we seen a post on Facebook the other day, specifically on the Living to Learn community, about Widowmakers. A friend of mine called Andrew, who has a small farm in Ireland, had a tree come down very close to him on the property. And I hope you're okay, Andrew, and I hope the fence is all right. But Widowmakers is something that we sometimes take for granted when it comes to the outdoors. So sometimes you might see a tree like this behind me, which is perfect for a camp on the ground. And we're actually going to use this for a camp. This is just at the back of our property here. So I thought I'd show you a really quick method to take down some Widowmakers that you would find around camp. You can very simply, if you do see a Widowmaker, which is basically a large branch that it looks like it's about to fall down from a tree, these can cause an awful lot of damage. Very simply, you can take a larger limb, if you have the upper body strength and it is safe to do so, you can take a very large limb and throw it into the tree. And this will remove branches as it falls down. Also a great way to collect firewood in the snow. Alternatively, if you want to be a bit more precise, or there's not so many Widowmakers that you may be hidden, you can use your folding saw, some cordage, and a green wood branch if it is safe to take it, and you can make yourself a telescoping arborist saw for removing from the tree. So we're going to get into it right away. So what we can see here on our green wood branch is when you're using a saw or lashing anything, whether it be a knife for gathering fruit from off trees, or you want to lash a Victorinox or a sawtwit, you always want to be careful of your two biggest motions. Something that's going to pull your saw out and something that's going to push your saw back. So in branches we have these natural checks, and I think these will be absolutely perfect for locking our folding saw into place. Perfect. So that takes care of this backwards pressure that's going to come with them. Now, to attack the forward pressure, what we are going to do, and you see I've used this several times before for demonstrations, is we are going to whip using a very simple whipping, which anybody can Google. We might leave a link to a good video below where you can whip your way up here, and that is going to hold it rigid, and because of the shape of the silky handle, it will stop it pulling off in this direction. And one thing that I do see missing for when people do make these in videos is you want to be able to protect your locking mechanism. I don't know about most guys out there, but when you're sawing down trees or branches off trees, you will tend to overstrike. It happens with axes, it happens with saws, it happens with everything. So you want to protect your locking mechanism, especially now that you're going to be working with a extra long appendage for when you want to saw down trees up here. So leave a little stop gap up here. It's just something I don't see too often, but leave this stop gap and it'll stop you overstriking your locking mechanism. So we're going to jump into that now, and with the magic of editing we are going to trim this tree down to where we need it to be. With the magic of Ida's editing, it should now look like somewhat what we needed to look at. You can see I have the locking branch just carved down a little bit. That's going to sit in there using that natural strong point on the branch, this split off here. I have this trimmed down up top here for protecting my locking mechanism should I have a overstrike. You can see when I extend it out here that my locking mechanism is protected. Now I'm simply going to wrap from here on the handle all the way up to here. And again, the reason why I only ever wrap the handle is because the silky saw's locking mechanism is pressed here at the back. If you use a backhoe Laplander or similar folding saw, you'll be able to wrap further up the saw because the locking mechanism is slightly different. But just something to be aware of, that if you do wrap this, the pressure of that wrap will lift the saw blade up and your saw will start to swing freely. So lock your silky into the position that you want it to be locked in and wrap just the black part of the handle here. In fact, you can see these previous whipping marks is a good gauge. So again, using Ida's magical power of editing, I am going to wrap this handle to here. So there you have it, folks, our outdoors campsite improvement tool, or it's basically just a silky saw wrapped to a really long branch. But you can see by using the natural checks to stop in here and the wrappings tied to a good length of stick, a good green wood branch, so it has that bit of flexibility. You don't want this to snap when you have it up in the tree. Also, you can see why we didn't wrap the locking mechanism here, because if you wrap it, it'll disengage and the lock will swing, or the blade will swing freely, which we don't want to have happen. You can get a further wrap if you use the Baco Laplander, because the locking mechanisms are completely different on the two saws. But the silky saws are built for this, and I just absolutely love them. So once we have this strong wrapping, we're not going to suffer any forces this way, our blade isn't going to get pulled off this way, and we have a bit of flex. We can start looking up and trying to prune which branches we have here. So I'm not going to take any of the ones with usnea on it. I love usnea, I'm a big fan of it, and it's on our trees here at the property, so I don't want to damage that. I'm trying to avoid microfungi, but we do have, so this is going to be a classroom area here, so we do have some Widowmakers up above. So I'm just going to trim them off just here. So there you have it, some easy ways to remove some of the larger Widowmakers from your camp. But always remember the 5 W's of choosing a safe campsite. Never damage any living trees that you don't have to. Make sure you know how to identify some dead branches. If you don't happen to have a saw with you, simply taking a large heavy limb like this and throwing it up into the tree will remove some Widowmakers should you have to get away with it. Also remember to leave a bit closer to the saw here to protect the gate or locking mechanism, so this acts as a stop guard, because not everybody is great with depth perception and you might end up actually damaging your saw as you overstrike on the tree branch there. So other than that, some nice safety tips as always. Be wary of Mother Nature outside, look after her, and hopefully she'll look after you. See you next time on a Skogok Mark.